So this morning I thought I would give the annual back-to-school report, what I did on my summer vacation, or what we did on our summer vacation. So normally on our summer vacations we go either to Los Angeles to see my brother, or we go to New Jersey to see Diane's sister, or we go to Israel to see my relatives there, and we hardly ever go anywhere where there's no relatives. So we haven't been to a lot of places in the last many years. So we picked a different place. We went to Seattle. Now, if you've been to Seattle, or even if you haven't, you've probably seen those iconic pictures of Seattle with what they call the Space Needle, which looks like a flying saucer on a toothpick. So I found out it was built in 1962 for the World's Fair, which was held in Seattle that year. And of course, we went there. If you've been to Seattle, you know there's a place called Pike's Place Market, which is kind of like the Seattle version of the Shook. It's a marketplace. It has fruits and vegetable stands and artisan stands and so on. We took a cruise of the bay. Boeing, in case you didn't know, his major manufacturing plant is in Seattle. So we went to see Boeing and where they build the 747, 757, 767, 777s, all the big airplanes. In fact, they told us it was the biggest building in the world ever. It was the Boeing manufacturing plant in Seattle. And we also went to Starbucks, because Starbucks is based in Seattle. Now, the truth is that every coffee place you go to in Seattle has brilliant coffee. Everybody has to compete with Starbucks, and they're all terrific. But because we were in Seattle, besides going to other places, we went to the big Starbucks coffee place. For Daniel's birthday, we went to a place that Daniel wanted to go, back to the Pike's Place Market, where they had the best mac and cheese in the world, or so they said. It's called Beecher's. You can look it up, check it out. It was good. Daniel actually makes better, but, you know, they don't know about him. He also wanted to go to a comic book, sci-fi, fantasy collectibles store in the market, so we went there. For the next day, for our anniversary, we went where Diane wanted to go. We went to Mount Rainier. It's a bit of a drive outside of Seattle, but it was beautiful. Beautiful mountains, still snow-capped even in August. Magnificent trees, waterfalls, clean fresh air, hiking in cool temperatures, 20 degrees below those of Houston, just not to brag. Hiking, by the way, for us at our age is kind of on level surfaces. We don't go hiking up and down too much anymore. But it was calming, it was relaxing, it was glorious. It's really important, I think, for city folk to get out back to nature. We live most of our lives in an artificial, man-made environment, and it's all too easy to forget that we actually live on an amazing, self-contained planet, a world of wonder, an awesomely crafted, finely tuned, beautifully integrated ecosystem. Sure, in summertime in Houston, it's most comfortable to sit inside an air-conditioned, artificially lit, soundproofed cubicle, probably ensconced in front of a flickering blue light that's either entertaining us or leading us through a web of entangled information while we search for that little nugget of data that we need or think we need. But if that's all we do, we're missing out on the real world. We're missing out on the reality and the splendor of life itself. So getting out to nature reminds us that we too are creatures, God's creatures. We're part of that finely tuned, beautifully integrated ecosystem. And we can also forget in our little cubicles that some of the things we do in our artificial, man-made world are tearing apart the fragile fabric of that natural ecosystem. Judaism teaches us that this amazing world we live in is not a random accident. Though science can explain how we got from the Big Bang to this small corner of the universe, how we got from a swirling molten mass orbiting our sun to rainforests, mountains, fish, birds, and land animals, how we developed from primates to fully sentient human beings, science can explain all or at least most of that. But our faith teaches us that this intricate process was not an accident. There is a creator behind this process, and we are his or hers or its creatures. And our mission, given by our creator, is to take care of this glorious globe in all of its magnificent natural beauty and complexity. In the beginning, the Bible tells us, God created the heavens and the earth. And at the end of the so-called 6 days of creation, God created humanity, Adam and Eve. And God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and the animals on land." And from this opening statement, we learn two important things. First, that everything belongs to God, because God created it. We're just life tenants in God's universe. And second, that we're not just tenants. God has created our intelligence, our ability to think, our ability to manipulate the world around us with those amazing opposable thumbed fingers and hands that has allowed us to conquer this world. We have used these gifts to truly be masters of the world around us. We have absolutely conquered this planet, and we certainly do rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and the animals that live on land. But then, in chapter 2 of Genesis, God tells Adam in the garden to work it, la'ovda u'leshomra, and to protect it. Our governance over this world comes with a condition, an awesome obligation. We're commanded to guard and protect this beautiful garden that we live in. Or as Spider-Man's Uncle Ben famously said, with great power comes great responsibility. In the book of Ecclesiastes, there's an interesting statement. In chapter 7, it says, "See what God has made, for who can repair what God has twisted?" Twisted sounds negative, but I think in this sense it was in a positive way. Let's think of it as, look at what God has woven together so intricately, so beautifully to create the world around us. And then our sages, commenting on this verse, created this interesting midrash, this story, that it was as if God took Adam after he created him, and he took him around to see the trees in the Garden of Eden, and he said to him, "Look at my beautiful works, how beautiful and praiseworthy they are. Everything that I have created here, I created for you. Take care not to damage and destroy my world, for if you do, there will be no one to repair it after you." This amazing statement from our sages predates the modern environmental movement by at least 1,500 years. And then in this morning's Torah portion, we read this interesting statement. When you're at war and you lay siege to a city for a long time, fighting against it to capture it, do not destroy the trees by putting an axe to them, because you can eat the fruit. Do not cut them down. Are the trees people that you should besiege them? Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, the former chief rabbi of England, comments on this verse. War is inevitably destructive. That's why Judaism's highest value is peace. Nonetheless, there is a difference between necessary and needless destruction. Do not needlessly deprive yourself and others of a productive resource. And from this seemingly minor law came a much more generalized commandment. Our sages saw this as what they called a binyan av, a general principle based on a specific case. This general principle is bal tashchit, do not unnecessarily destroy anything. Maimonides, in codifying this law in his Code of Jewish Law, the Mishnah Torah, writes, not only does this apply to trees, but also to whoever breaks vessels, instruments, implements, tears garments, destroys a building, blocks a wellspring of water, or destructively wastes food. Anyone who does these things transgresses the commandment, bal tashchit, do not destroy. Maimonides predates the modern environmental movement by at least 800 years. So what can we do? Well, I can tell you what Diane and I do, and we're certainly not perfect, and we make mistakes, and we're inconsistent, but here's some things we do. While we were out, we bought mugs, so that we could bring the mugs with us to the coffee shops to fill them. We didn't often use them, but we're working on it. So you don't dispose of cups every time you go to the coffee place. You use a reusable mug. We actually also bought metal straws, so you don't have to buy plastic straws every time. But you have to remember to take the straws with you. That's a trick. We're still working on it. Many of you know that I have sleep apnea, so I use a CPAP machine at night so I can breathe a little better. And we're collectors, unfortunately. We don't often throw things away. I've saved all my old CPAP machines. I don't know why. They're sitting in a corner. And this last week, I finally decided I'm going to do something. I didn't want to throw them away. I found on the internet a place that recycles old CPAP machines. They're in Florida. And I shipped all my old CPAP machines and equipment over there. Somebody who can't afford it will be able to sleep tonight. We, of course, recycle curbside glass, paper, cardboard, including milk cartons I discovered, and plastics. We avoid plastic shopping bags when we can. We use those reusable, sturdy plastic bags instead. And we recently figured out that if you forget to bring them into the store with you, which we often do, you can just have them put the stuff back in the cart loose, go out to your car, and pull out those bags and stuff the bags from the cart and take them home. So we don't have to use plastic bags. And when we do get plastic bags from the store, all the supermarkets recycle them. There's a bin where you can bring them back and put them in. We use, the kind of electricity we use is wind-powered electricity. It costs a few cents extra per kilowatt hour, but I consider it a donation to God. We're actually thinking about maybe putting solar panels on the roof, but we haven't decided that yet. And then Diane composts organic materials. I'm not very good at this. I'm terrible at this, in fact. I usually throw it out. But Diane saves the organic material to put out in the backyard to compost it. We actually have more in our recycling bin than our trash bin every week. You can also donate trees. Jews have been donating trees since the early Zionist movement through the National Jewish Fund. But you don't have to donate trees just to Israel. You can buy trees for Houston. It's called Trees for Houston. You can Google it. You can also donate to trees all over the country. It's called a living tribute. You can plant trees all over the country. The point is, Bal Tashchit is an ancient commandment in Judaism. Long before the environmental movement, there was a sense that everything in our world is a gift from God, and we need to treat our world with respect and care. If we break it, there is no one, not even God, who will be able to fix it. Since the time of Adam and Eve, our tradition has taught us that God has charged humanity with the responsibility to protect and preserve the beautiful garden that we call Earth. Shabbat Shalom.